Business Matters, presented by the Guamanian Magazine.
In a landmark decision, an international court ruled in favor of the Philippines in a dispute with China over control of its exclusive economic zone. The Permanent Court of Arbitration rejected Beijing's claim that it owns thousands of miles of surrounding waters in the hotly disputed South China Sea. Philippine Consul General for Guam, Marciano de Borja.
What the Philippines is saying is that all claimant countries, including China, they have a right to claim. But China's claim is so excessive because if you look at the map, what they claim to be their 9-dash line already encompasses about 90% of the whole South China Sea.
De Borja says long simmering tensions over territorial boundaries came to a head in 2012 when the Philippine Coast Guard intercepted a Chinese fishing vessel not far from Subic Bay, the sprawling former U.S. naval base. De Borja recalls that not only were the Chinese operating within what the Philippines claimed was its 200-mile EEZ, they were also harvesting endangered species. He says a Chinese naval vessel was dispatched in the midst of the standoff.
At that time, there was really tension, great tension. I remember that. I was still in Manila. So the Philippines, of course, couldn't resort to the use of force or other means or military means because, we cannot really fight China. China is a military power and we recognize our weakness in the face of that situation.
So instead, the Philippine government decided to take the matter to international court in a filing under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea.
Initially, there were some hesitation to do it because it has never been done before. This is the first time that the case was brought to the court, to the attention of the UN, of course, under the convention. And, of course, it was a test case. Coastal states, like the Philippines, are entitled to what we call the exclusive economic zone, which is equivalent to 200 nautical miles. Okay, so whereby the coastal state has the right to explore, to exploit the mineral or the resources within that zone.
He describes it as a 3-year-long battle between David and Goliath, but ultimately the International Tribunal agreed with Manila, and while the Philippine government welcomed the decision, it was careful not to antagonize China, urging all concerned to exercise restraint and sobriety.
The threat or the use of force in resolving conflict will not resolve. In fact, it will even contribute to the deterioration of peace and security. And we cannot afford that because it is a major sea lane. And of course, all the other countries developing, they have their, trade and commerce and aviation, pass through that.
And de Borja says the decision by no means settles all territorial disputes because there are overlapping claims involving several different sets of countries. But what it does, though, is firmly establish the rule of law.
What the Philippine government wanted was to clarify the maritime entitlements, okay, which is very different from a territorial dispute. It's not saying this is ours, this is yours, because it's a very complicated issue. It's not just between the Philippines and China, but also the other claimants like Taiwan, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and even Indonesia. In this case, we may say that it is right prevailing over might. Because countries, whether big or small, will have an equal share of or fair chance of pursuing its interests.
Beijing refused to participate in the arbitration and so far has rejected the International Tribunal's decision and authority. But China now finds itself in a much bigger court, the Court of World Opinion.
If China wants to be seen as and be respected as a regional, a rising power, even a superpower, it has to be seen as someone that is adhering to international practice, international law, and that it's there to respect other countries' rights and other countries' sovereignty. But by filing this case and then getting this result, of course, it's favorable to the Philippines. Well, we'll be able to, as a country, we'll be able to determine what will be our priorities, what will be our approach, and what will be its long-term effect, not just to Philippine national security, but also to the economy and, of course, the overall peace and stability of the region.
For KUAM's Business Matters, I'm Nestor Licanto.
Business Matters, presented by the Guamanian Magazine.